The topic for today is unlock visibility into application performance from your OpManager console. So what we will be seeing today is how Applications Manager as a plugin has added monitoring benefits. Now, the reasons being, a single console offers a unified network application, databases, cloud monitoring solution. This also avoids time for troubleshooting multiple issues that are across multiple monitoring UIs. And lastly, the sole purpose of having a unified console is to avoid multiple monitoring tools, which will take more time in accessing each and individual UI. So there are few topics which we will be discussing in today's webinar. To begin with, we will be seeing how automatically applications are discovered by providing a business-centric view into the infrastructure. So before we get into creating a business-centric view, the first thing would be identifying the resources and adding those resources for monitoring. Now, Applications Manager plugin offers the users with the functionality, which is where the users can discover applications and servers using application discovery and dependency module. So this ADDM is what will help the users create a map view with the help of the provided details. So the first thing would be giving credentials. Now, each and individual monitor available in Applications Manager has certain level of privileges for the monitor to be added. And these privileges are required to be provided for each and individual monitor type. Now, once that is done, the next step would be identifying the various resources which are available. Now, this particular discovery feature offers the users to discover resources with multiple ways. One being IP range, number two is CIDR, and if there are multiple virtual machines available for discovery, you can make use of the VMware. The next step would be providing a particular IP range from various subnet masks. Now, what I have over here is a particular IP range and a single subnet mask from which the resources available within the specified IP range will be discovered based on the credentials that were provided. And not just that, the next step would be configuring ports. It is essential to provide port numbers. The reason being, there might be multiple applications running in the given IP range. So in order to ensure that the specified applications or the required applications are only discovered where the users can go ahead and enable or disable the port check which is available in this list for certain monitor types. Now, once this is done, the next step would be the discovery process. Now, what we have over here is two different screenshots. The first screenshot, we see that there are multiple machines or multiple resources to be discovered provided from the range of IP addresses. And in the second screenshot, it displays the various resources that have been discovered, and it is also displaying the resources available within the parent monitor. The next thing would be creating a map view. So this is a dependency map based on the information that was provided right from the IP range, the port number, the credentials. Now, once everything has been verified, it will create a map view, which is what we are looking right now. And the benefit of this map view is it automatically categorizes the respective resources, be it a server, be it a database, or be it an application. And it discovers resources from multiple subnets, and it creates a map view like what we see over here. And of the most, it creates monitors with connection. Now, let us go to the UI and see how all these can be achieved. The first thing before a user can access this particular module is to ensure that the users have installed Applications Manager plugin. Now, once it is installed, the OpManager console has to be accessed because it is a single login which will let the users access Applications Manager as well as OpManager without the need for having to log in to each and individual tool time and again manually. So there's an option called Apps, which is available in the OpManager console, which upon clicking will take the users to the Applications Manager dashboard. So from over here, the user can choose to navigate between multiple options that this product offers. Now let us go to the Admin tab, which is over here, where the users will have various features to be accessed. So in our case, we will be looking at application discovery. Now, in any ideal monitoring solution, there are multiple ways of adding resources, and Applications Manager offers the end users with multiple methods. One is a standard method where the user has to identify an individual monitor type, provide the details, and add them. Number two being bulk import, where the user has to provide the details, which can be in a CSV file where the resources information, the host details, the credentials are needed to be provided. And if it requires a separate mode of monitoring, and that particular information is also specified in the CSV file. Now over here, the user has to pick between various monitor types and import the CSV file by providing all the details. The users can download this CSV file, which is available in this hyperlink, which will give the example of how details can be entered. Now, lastly, we have the discovery option. So I have created a discovery module well in advance. Now, what I have over here is multiple monitor types that needs to be discovered. So I've created credentials for various monitor types like databases, servers, and applications. The user can go ahead and create the credentials, which is available here under Add New Credential. Once clicking this, it will give the user the flexibility to choose between various monitor types. So if a user has to pick between one of these credential types, which is MongoDB in this case, the basic information that needs to be provided is the username and the password, and the credential name, which is a unique display name. Now, as I said a while ago, it is essential that the prerequisites are required to be completed for adding the credentials as well as the monitors. Now we have a series of few credentials which were added. The next thing would be choosing the range and the IP address. So over here, I have specified a different IP address with a different subnet mask. Now the next thing would be configuring the port details. Now within the specified IP range, there might be multiple applications or app servers which might be residing within the given range. But if the end user wants only certain level of applications or certain set of applications or servers or databases to be discovered, the user can toggle between the various ports that are available in this window for configuration. Now what I have over here is the servers, the applications, and the databases. So this is an enable or disable option. Now let me disable the Jboss port over here so that any Jboss applications that reside within this particular IP range will not be discovered. Or if the user requires other applications to be monitored, which are essential, the user can confirm by verifying if a port is enabled or disabled. Once the port configuration is done, the next step would be discover and add. So once the discover and add option is given, the IPs will be identified and it will check if there are various monitors that needs to be discovered. So the discovery process will be initiated and it will take some time because it has to verify the authenticity of the credentials, and then it has to add the resources. Now, once the resources are added, it will create a dependent map view. Now, here I have a map view, which will give the users a good idea of how exactly the dependencies are identified and how these particular monitors are classified based on their categorization. Now, this is an example of a Windows server, a database, and an application server. So this will help the users identify how well the connections are established with the parent monitor. So this is how the discovery process works. Now let us go ahead and see the next module in the today's series. So the next module would be, we will be seeing how to optimize website performance to deliver better user experience. Now, it is quite essential to ensure that the websites are running 24/7 without having a downtime. Now, how can this be done? There are multiple ways of monitoring the websites. Standard way is identifying a specific website's URL to check its response time, its availability. But what we are seeing right now is an advanced method where the end user monitoring is something which will require agents to be deployed across multiple geographic locations where data will be fetched from that particular location and it will be updated in Applications Manager. For this to be done, a plugin needs to be downloaded, which is Web Transaction Recorder. Both the end user monitoring and the Web Transaction Recorder can be downloaded from Applications Manager homepage. So this end user monitoring will capture errors, network requests, page load details, and other metrics in your web applications. And it will also help you to deploy multiple agents in multiple locations, which will facilitate to check the availability and the performance of your distributed websites or distributed web servers, where the performance of these websites is identified by measuring the end user customer experience through session replays. And how is this done? Now, this is what we will be seeing in the upcoming slides. So in order to ensure that the complete transaction, right from the beginning until the end, the complete user journey is captured, the Web Transaction Recorder helps the user to perform and identify playback scripts, which involves recording of each and individual mouse click or a keyboard interaction. And it also ensures that the SLAs are met, which will enhance or which will improve the website's performance from multiple geographical locations. So this real browser monitoring that we are going to see will mimic the user interaction every time a mouse click is performed. It will monitor your websites in real time and captures all the synthetic transaction that is being done. And most importantly, it reduces the blame game between the application team and the network team. So over here, I have a sample screenshot, which will help you understand how to record and add a monitor, which we will of course see in just a while. But this will give the users a brief idea of the various components or the various websites that have been accessed throughout the transaction. And in addition to the standard metrics that are monitored, which is the response time or the page load time, the end user can also identify the content that is available in a specific web page. So for each and individual transaction or each and individual web page, this particular monitor type offers the user to do content check to identify a specific string, be it available or unavailable in the page. Now, once the monitor is added successfully, the user will get deeper visibility into multi-step user interactions, which is what we have over here is 5 different transactions, which means 5 different web pages which are accessed and each and individual web page has its own page load time and its response time. That information is captured. Along with it, the screenshots are captured, which is how the website's performance is identified. Like what we have over here is a screenshot at the time of recording. And in addition to that, it also captures the resource details, which is the various web-based elements or components which are available, like the CSS, script, HTML, or images. So this will give the web server admin an exact idea of how the page has been when it was recorded and how the page is at a different time intervals. So this will also give the user the right amount of information to see if there is any major content change in a particular website or in a particular transaction. And in addition to this, the user can also identify network latency using the waterfall model or the waterfall graph that is available in the same monitoring page. Now, what happens is this will identify each and individual component, and it lets the users identify the various status code for the individual component along with the size and the content type. Like an example of what we have over here is multiple steps that were recorded, which depicts the series of actions that has occurred by each and individual user click, and each and individual component has its own network related stats. The respective information is provided right in the graph and also given in legend. Now let us see how a monitor can be recorded, for which the user has to invoke the web transaction recorder. So right now I have the web transaction recorder open. The basic details that needs to be provided is the host name of the applications manager server as to where it is hosted and the SSL port number. The port number is available under the configuration file, which is AM server properties. That is available under the installation folder followed by conf. Now, once these details are identified, it is essential that the user chooses is Apm plugin. Now, once the details are correct, the next step would be logging in. So the credentials that are used to log into OpManager UI is what the user will be providing over here. And upon successful login, there are multiple options for which the user can proceed with. Now, in this case, let me choose Real Browser Monitor. So there are a couple of things which needs to be kept mindful. One is every time a user is performing a transaction, they have to wait for the page to be completely rendered before the next step is done. So we will see how it is done. The first step would be clicking on record new, and the next step would be providing the URL, which is, let me provide google.com in this case. And as we see on the right hand side bottom corner, there is a rendering option, which for this page has been pretty fast. Now let me choose manage engine. And it gives the user various options, like what we have over here. The first hyperlink. Now we have landed in a page which gives multiple options. So the next step would be picking up a specific hyperlink. Now what I do is hover over products and choose application. So this will give the user an option to click on multiple other options. Now, so far, what we did was we access multiple pages, like accessing google.com, searching for manage engine, and then clicking on products followed by application. Now, altogether, we have done a couple of steps. So the next thing would be preview and save. So once this is clicked, a window will open where the user has to provide details, which is the monitor name. Let me choose, or let me provide a unique display name. The next step would be doing content check or identifying the various elements that have been recorded. So as we can see over here, each and individual page has multiple transactions or multiple interactions to be precise. Now in google.com, what I did was I clicked on manage engine, for which I had to mouse over on a specific link, and the next steps were displayed down below. So if the user has to provide a content check, the user can choose a particular link, or maybe let me choose a different link over here and provide the string. Just log in, for example. If this particular page or if this particular link is not present, the monitor would be alerted. So this is how the user can customize various things in terms of monitoring. So the next step would be creating the monitor. And what we have is a monitor that is successfully added. Now let me close this window and let us get back to the UI to see that the monitor is created right now. So to access the monitor, the first step would be identifying where the end user monitoring option is. So over here, we have the EUM option, which once clicked will take us to the page. And as we can see, this is the monitor that was created just a while ago. And this will take a little time before monitor pulls the actual data and gives the end user the results. So in the meanwhile, let me try accessing a different monitor right now, which is already created. And this gives the user to see how well the website is performing. Now, what we have is a particular page which is not accessed in 30 seconds. So these are some of the things which will impact the end user's satisfaction on the website's performance. So what we see here is a particular page or a particular transaction, which is accessing google.com or searching for a specific content. Now, the basic monitoring metrics include over here is the response time, the page load time. And this is how you can get complete insight into identifying various metrics. So this screenshot over here helps the user identify how the page has been available right at the time of its transaction and the various resource or various components which are available in a web page. And further down below, we have the waterfall model, which rightly helps the user identify which component has consumed a lot of time and what was its network stats and what were the total amount of requests that were accessed or that were sent for a particular transaction to be successfully accessible. With this, let us move on to the next module for today. So the next module would be effectively pinpointing the root cause of issues and troubleshooting them with ease. Now let me give an example. A particular application that needs to be accessed day in, day out has an issue. Now, typically, the end users would contact the server admin or the IT help desk, who in turn contacts with the respective application team, and the cycle goes on and on. Now, we will be seeing how to mitigate such issues. Every now and then, these might occur. So before we identify how to isolate these issues, let us also have a quick look as to the various reasons why the application might be slow. It could be because of overloaded requests on the web server or multiple sessions that were accessed at any given point of time, insufficient memory, or maybe memory leak due to multiple threads which are in a blocked state, or it could be because of slow database query execution or slow method calls, and could be a buggy application code as well. Now, the traditional approach to this sort of issues troubleshooting is the end users complaining it to the help desk team, who in turn reaches the application or the server team, where the issue has to be reproduced, the logs has to be analyzed, and the code level debugging has to be done before a fix can be provided. Now, this is a very tedious process and it consumes a lot of time, which results in poor end user experience and a lot of downtime. Now, the modern approach would be having an aptX score for the application's performance, which is based on a scale of 0 to 1. That is an industry standard, which determines how satisfied the end user are. Now, this particular approach will identify the transactions and slow database calls that will affect the application performance, and helps the user pinpoint right to the root of the issue with the help of various metrics, which is the average response time, the throughput, the various errors. Now, this will also help the user identify the traces of the database operation and the time spent for each and individual SQL calls. Now, here is an example of a screenshot that helps the users identify where exactly the problematic code is. Could it be because of an external DB, or could it be because of multiple transactions or multiple threads which are in a block state? So these sort of issues is what will have the application to have a performance bottleneck. And in addition to this, there could be other reasons as well. And it could be because of slowness in the application, which might be because of the JVM dependencies or memory related issues. So what this particular monitor type, the Apm Insight, does is it helps the user identify the issues and provides decisions that needs to be made faster. So the memory tab offers various options, which is identifying the classes, identifying the memory leaks, ensuring that the unnecessary stray entries in the garbage is purged, and ensure that proper heap memory and non-heap memory is assigned. Now let me take you to the UI to show how the Apm Insight monitor is accessed. So over here in the Applications Manager UI, we have an option called Apm Insight. So right now, I have a monitor which does not display any details for the respective metrics, be it app score or be it response time. Now we will perform some transactions and ensure that there is enough data. But before that, there is something that needs to be noted. The Apm Insight monitor is an agent-based monitor which is available across 5 different agents: the Java agent, .NET agent, Ruby on Rails, PHP, and Node.js. For each and individual agent, there are respective agents available which can be downloaded from this particular page, which is available over here under download. Now, what I'm going to show is how the agent can be configured for a Java agent or an application that is hosted on a Java platform. So let me quickly show the installation folder. So this is an Apache Tomcat server that I am going to monitor. And over here, I have an Apm Insight Java agent. The first thing that the user has to do is provide basic configuration details, which is done in the Apm Insight.conf. So let me quickly drag and show it to you. Now, as we can see, the user has to provide the host details. And the next thing that we have over here is the license key. The license key is available in the UI in the same page as we see over here. Now, this license key can be copied. And the next step would be pasting the license key. And the most important thing when it comes to configuring Apm Insight is to provide the right port number of the monitored target application. Now, the next detail that is needed to be provided is the port number and the agent port number. Now, my Tomcat server runs on port 8080, which is why I have specified the respective port. If the application runs on a different port, the target port number has to be specified over this place and it can be saved. Now, the next step would be configuring the target server. So let us go back to the Tomcat server and let me start the application. So once the application is started, we will have a window, which is what we are seeing right now. So this has multiple properties. So since this being a Java application, what an end user has to do is to provide the Java-based arguments. So what we have over here is the Java argument, which is pinpointing to the file, which is the jar file that is required for communication. So what we have over here is this particular Apm Insight-Java agent.jar, which has its complete absolute path provided. Now, once these changes are made, the target application has to be restarted. And once it is done, the respective application can be accessed over a website. And what I have right now is an example website where the user can perform multiple transactions. Now, what I did is click on a specific object and access the further things, which is perform as many transactions as possible. And the next step would be having a completely error-free transaction. So this way, the users will have no issues and the aptX score of the application will also remain high. Now, what if the application has an error? So let me create an error manually right now. So there is one particular object or one particular component which has an error in the web page. Now, in order to identify these errors, the application logs has to be retrieved and it has to be identified. But with this modern approach, we can easily see where exactly the issue has occurred. Now, what I am trying to do is I'm trying to perform more and more transactions, which will give the user exceptions or no issues that are performed or no issues that are identified when accessing any particular object in a web page. Now, let me go ahead and refresh the page so that the transactions that we made are recorded and we will see the data for Apm Insight. So once the Apm Insight monitor gives the user of the various things that were identified, like what we have is the aptX score, the response time, the throughput, errors, and the fatal count. Now let me go into the UI to give much more details about this particular monitor type. So what we have here is an overview, like more number of transactions that are performed, more amount of data it gives. And let me just switch between the last couple of hours so that there is enough data for us to go ahead and see how actually this monitoring works. Now, what we have over here in this overview page is the aptX score, the response time, the exceptions, and the throughput, and various other details which we will be seeing across the individual tabs. The first thing would be performing transactions. Now, as we have seen, I accessed a couple of links in a particular web page, and each and individual page has various web-based components. Now let me go ahead and show the respective metrics. So where we have the aptX score, the response time, the CPU time. Now let me choose the response time as a metric. And as we can see, one of these web-based components is having a high response time. Now, once we click on this particular component, it further drills down into letting the user know the various components which are available, be it the application code, be it the JDBC connectivity, or be it the response time. Now, each and individual component is classified for each and individual transaction, which is available over here. And similarly, if there is any error in the transaction, these errors would be easily identified, and it lets the user know where exactly the error has been and what was the error. Was it because of an external call or was it because of a slow method call? This will help the user pinpoint where exactly it was found. The next thing would be database. For a particular page to be successfully accessed, there are various queries which are being executed in the background. Now, with each and individual query that is successfully executed, it results in identifying certain amount of components in the web page. Like the insert query that I have clicked right now, we can see index.html, which is one of the pages that I have accessed, and it lets the user identify the SQL time, which is the time taken for the query to be executed. And it also lets the user identify the response time as well as the throughput. Now, up next, we have the JVM, the Java Virtual Memory. This is something that will help a user identify the memory that has to be allocated, be it a heap memory or be it non-heap memory. And this will give the user the precise information to identify how many threads are in block state, how many threads are in waiting state, the various things that needs to be done in order to ensure that there are no memory overhead in the application. Now, here under garbage collector, the JVM identifies unrequired Java stray entries, which is identified by PS scavenge and PS mark sweep, which will try to purge the unrequired information or the stray entries and ensures that the application's memory is optimized every time there are transactions performed. And lastly, we are looking at the traces. The traces is something which will help the end users or the admins or the DevOps delve into applications performance bottlenecks. So the trace details that are available over here helps the user identify the various method calls, the various SQL statements, which is available under SQL statements, where the user can see what was the total time taken and when exactly was this particular transaction or this particular error identified and what was its responsible query. And as we move ahead, we can also identify the remote calls, also the external calls, and it gives the user the identification to see the various calls that have been sent through the jar file, which is established through the JDBC jar. And up next, we have exceptions. So if you remember, I deliberately produced an error message on accessing one of the element in a web page. Now, these are some things which might come if there are certain issues on the web page. Now, these issues can be easily identified with the help of the stack trace, which will pinpoint to the location, and it will also help the user identify where the issue has been and what was the root cause of the issue. And with these things, the user can ensure that the issues are not replicated time and again, and the performance bottlenecks are isolated before the end user reports. With this, let us move ahead to the next topic, which is analyzing future growth trends with the help of machine learning enabled reports. Now, as far as monitoring is concerned, it is also required that the reports are enabled for monitoring, because reports is something that will help the user predict how the utilization has been over the past 1 week, last quarter, or last year. Now, these are some of the standard reports. Now, Application Manager plugin offers the end users with more advanced report types, which is the forecast report, where the user can see how the utilization of few selective metrics have been. Now, what we have over here is a sample forecast report of a disk utilization. So with the help of machine learning, it identifies or it compares how the trend has been in the last 30 days or last 1 year, and it predicts how the utilization will be in the next 1 year or 2 years, or whatever the timeline that can be chosen within the 2-year time frame that is available. Now, once this is given, it exactly helps the user pinpoint or identify how exactly the utilization is going to be. Now, let me take you to the UI to show how exactly the reports can be accessed. So over here, we have the option where the user can access or where the user can toggle between multiple options. And right now we will be clicking on reports as we see over here. So under the reports tab, there are multiple options where the user can see monitor group, servers, the databases. And this is because Applications Manager has the monitors classified based on their respective types. Now, speaking about the forecast report, a user can choose between multiple monitor types, which can be selected under this dropdown, where the user can pick between applications, databases, servers, or web services. Now, once that is identified, the next step would be clicking on one of these report type. Now, let me choose the forecast report of disk utilization, which will give a new window where the user can access and identify how the reports are for various options. Now let us just wait for the report to load, and what we have over here is the disk utilization report of the local server, where it is comparing the data for the last 15 days with the machine learning enabled. The user can choose to switch between multiple time frames. So let me choose 10 months down the lane. Now, if the server admin has to identify how the compute resources are going to be utilized over the next 10 months, the admin can make use of the forecast report, where what we have over here is 3 different disks, and it is letting the user identify when exactly it will reach its maximum assigned potential. Now, to get more granularity into this, a user can choose to click on one of these options. So let me choose the E drive. Now, once this is clicked, the user can get to see a graph that will exactly let the user know how drastically there is an improvement in terms of disk utilization. Now, the current data or the actual data as we show over here lets the user see that the utilization is around 88%. Now, as the days progress, the utilization of a particular disk drive is also getting increased. And as we scroll further down below, we can see when exactly it will reach its 90% or when exactly it will reach its 100%. So this is how precise the information that we have on this particular report helps the user. So let me just scroll to the bottom to see when exactly it will reach 90. So within the time frame that I chose, at no point in the next 10 months, it will reach even its 90% or maybe it's 100%. Or for a different drive, as we can see over here in this graph, it is letting the user know when exactly there would be change or when exactly there needs to be some information or some unnecessary data that needs to be removed. So this is how the reports function in Applications Manager. And in addition to this, there are 250 plus other report types, which will help the user pull reports for each and individual attribute. Now, so far, what we have seen is identifying performance bottlenecks across websites, understanding web user transactions. Now, Applications Manager is not limited to few monitor types. There are some advanced monitoring options as well. In addition to monitoring the databases, the most advanced features or most advanced monitor types in Applications Manager are the cloud monitoring. So as we can see, in the screenshot, there are 5 different cloud monitors, which are the widely used cloud architecture, and Applications Manager monitors almost all the features. So for an Office 365, we monitor the SharePoint, Skype, and for an Oracle Cloud, we monitor the containers. And under Microsoft Azure, we monitor the SQL database, and where we monitor the blobs as well in detail. Now, talking about Google Cloud, we have the Google File Store, the Google Storage, and under AWS, we have multiple things. For example, we monitor the EC2 instances, the S3 buckets, the notification service, Dynamo database, and many other things. So in addition to all this monitoring and reporting stuff, it is also essential that the users get the notifications of various alerts that are various incidents that are identified in the monitoring tool. Now, Applications Manager offers the users with multiple notification services, which is an email-based notification, SMS, and if the end users have multiple ticketing tools that can be integrated, like Service Desk Plus or ServiceNow, the user can make use of these integrations. If not, if there's a third-party ticketing tool, we can also integrate them with the help of the REST API options that Applications Manager offers. And there are various options. We also have in-house webhook actions, and these are some of the various action types. Now, speaking about integrations, if you use Slack for internal communication, you can integrate Slack. You can integrate Service Desk Plus, which is a ticketing platform, and Alarms One, where you can see all the alerts that are seen on OpManager console and Applications Manager UI in a single place. Now let us go to the UI to see how the user can access various monitor types. Now, as we can see, there are various options. Now let me choose database servers over here, which will list only the database. Now for the user to identify various monitor types, we have the option of choosing category view under this particular dropdown. And what we see over here is the various monitor types that are supported in Applications Manager plugin. As we see over here, we have support of individual applications, enterprise resource suites, databases, and cloud. As we can see here under cloud, there are various metrics or various flavors of each and individual cloud service that are available for monitoring. And the monitoring details are listed here. The next thing is identifying the actions, for which the user has to click on the admin tab. And under admin, under alarm and actions, there's an option called actions over here, which the user has to click to identify various actions. Now, I did mention about email, SMS action, and the ticket action. In addition to that, there are various other options as well. Now, if you have a custom file or a custom script or a query, you can make use of execute program action, where you have to create or import the respective batch file or the script file and associate it to the monitor such that the actions are triggered and the desired output is produced. And similarly, further below, we have other options like creating virtual machine actions to restart or start a stopped VM or a stopped service in a specific Windows Server monitor. And further down, we have the REST API options, which is to integrate custom tools with the help of the API keys and the Slack actions. Now with this, let us go ahead and have a quick recap as to what we have seen in this webinar. So initially, we did see how applications can be added for monitoring with the help of application dependency and discovery mapping module. And up next, we have seen how the end user journey on a particular web page across a series of synthetic transactions can be captured, and the website's performance is measured using the customer and the session replays. And we have seen a modern approach to identify how applications bottlenecks are avoided and mitigated. And lastly, we have seen the reports, advanced monitoring types, which is cloud monitors, and various actions, which is notification action, as well as executable actions, which is the ticket actions, or maybe restarting or executing a custom program, which is with the help of a script or a batch file. And for you to access our pages, here is the various resources, which is the various videos of Applications Manager, the knowledge base, the help link, or even you can contact the Applications Manager pre-sales team at eval-apm@manageengine.com, or contact us on one of the phone numbers given below. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day ahead.